Nitrogen gas and the death penalty, Jessie Hoffman's case and the ethics of execution. The Louisiana State Penitentiary, a place shrouded in both infamy and despair, holds within its walls the life of Jessie Hoffman, a man who has spent nearly 3 decades on death row. Convicted of horrific crimes in 1998, Hoffman now faces an execution method that has never before been used in the history of the United States: nitrogen gas. This development raises profound legal and ethical questions and casts a harsh spotlight on the uniqueness of this approach to capital punishment. Today, we delve into the story of Jessie Hoffman, the mechanics of nitrogen gas as an execution method, and the moral dilemmas that shape Louisiana's controversial decision. Jessie Hoffman, now 46 years old, was convicted in 1998 for a crime that horrified Louisiana. A jury found him guilty of kidnapping Mary Mickey Morse, a vibrant 28-year-old advertising professional. Hoffman abducted Morse, robbed her, raped her, and eventually fatally shot her, extinguishing a promising life in a storm of violence. The jurors delivered a swift sentence: death. For nearly 30 years, Hoffman has lived behind bars in Louisiana's Angola prison, a maximum security institution that houses some of the most notorious criminals in the state. Angola's walls do more than just confine. They bear witness to lifetimes spent grappling with guilt, fear, and the inevitable prospect of death. But justice, as it unfolds in this case, does not merely impact Hoffman. It leaves ripples across legal, social, and ethical landscapes, particularly as Louisiana prepares to execute him using a controversial method that remains untested and unprecedented. Nitrogen gas, or nitrogen hypoxia, is being framed as a solution to the logistical challenges surrounding lethal injection. With the supply of traditional execution drugs diminishing due to pharmaceutical companies' objections, some states, including Louisiana, have turned their attention to alternative methods. Nitrogen gas promises a deceptively simple procedure. The condemned individual is placed in a sealed mask or chamber, where inhalation of pure nitrogen leads to oxygen deprivation and, ultimately, death. Advocates of this method argue that nitrogen gas offers a painless and quick death, sidestepping the complications often associated with lethal injection. Proponents claim that it could be more humane, avoiding the botched executions that have afflicted state prisons and drawn global criticism. However, there remains a glaring detail. Nitrogen gas has never been used to execute anyone in the United States. Its practicality and humaneness are entirely theoretical, leading many to question whether Louisiana is entering a moral and legal no-man's land. Louisiana's plan to use nitrogen gas on Jessie Hoffman becomes even more controversial in light of the state's clear stance on animal welfare. In Louisiana, the use of nitrogen gas to euthanize pets has been expressly banned due to concerns about cruelty. Experts found that animals subjected to nitrogen hypoxia often experience distress and pain before death. Yet, that very same method is now poised to be used on a human being. Critics argue that the contradiction highlights a troubling moral inconsistency. If nitrogen gas is deemed inhumane for animals, how can it be considered suitable for humans? This inconsistency reveals a deeper question. Is the justice system aiming to uphold the highest ethical standards, or choosing convenience at the cost of human dignity? This case emerges within the framework of the Eighth Amendment, which protects individuals from cruel and unusual punishment. Legal scholars argue that nitrogen gas, as an untested method, treads dangerously close to violating this constitutional safeguard. Without empirical data or precedent to support the claim that nitrogen hypoxia is painless, there exists a significant risk that the condemned could suffer during the process. The psychological toll of facing an experimental execution method has also come under scrutiny. Death row inmates already endure tremendous mental anguish. The added uncertainty surrounding nitrogen gas could amplify that suffering further. Organizations like the American Civil Liberties Union, ACLU, and Amnesty International emphasize that the lack of testing renders nitrogen hypoxia fundamentally unethical. If there is even a slight possibility of unnecessary suffering, they argue, the method should not be used. Legal experts are divided on the issue. Some frame the use of nitrogen gas as a necessary evolution of execution methods, especially as states contend with drug shortages for lethal injection. They argue that nitrogen hypoxia is not explicitly prohibited and could usher in a more modern approach to the death penalty. Others, however, express grave concerns. They point to the potential for legal challenges, particularly if the execution process results in visible suffering or complications. Courts could reopen debates on whether such a method violates constitutional rights, delaying justice yet again. The legal ambiguity swirling around nitrogen gas executions ensures this issue will not be easily resolved, particularly if Jessie Hoffman becomes the first individual subjected to this method. This case also reignites the broader discussion surrounding the death penalty itself. Across the United States, support for capital punishment has waned in recent years, with more states abolishing it altogether. Public opinion reflects growing concerns about wrongful convictions, human rights violations, and the irreversible nature of this ultimate punishment. Supporters of the death penalty assert that it serves as a deterrent and delivers justice for victims and their families. In cases like Hoffman's, where evidence of guilt is overwhelming, proponents argue that the death penalty remains a fitting consequence for heinous crimes. Yet, opponents underscore the system's flaws. They highlight numerous cases of individuals wrongfully convicted and later exonerated, often after spending decades on death row. The risk of executing the innocent, no matter how small, raises profound ethical concerns that threaten the validity of capital punishment itself. The discussion doesn't end with legalities. Money, time, and resources are deeply intertwined with execution processes. Studies show that death penalty cases often cost the state far more than those resulting in life imprisonment without parole. Factors such as prolonged appeals, special housing conditions, and the spectacle of the execution itself contribute to the financial burden. Moreover, humanity plays a significant role. Nitrogen gas executions claim to offer a swifter, possibly more humane alternative. But how does one weigh this claim against its ethical cost? On a deeply personal level, the story of Jessie Hoffman transcends the legal mechanics of execution. Decades after his conviction, questions remain about what justice truly looks like in his case. For the family of Mary Mickey Morse, closure remains elusive. Hoffman's execution may fulfill the court's judgment, but also perpetuate the cycle of pain and loss. Conversely, Hoffman spent years on death row fighting his looming fate, and now faces the daunting prospect of being the test case for an unproven execution method. Beyond the personal implications, Hoffman's case represents a pivotal moment for Louisiana and potentially the nation. If his nitrogen gas execution proceeds, it could set a legal and ethical precedent for other states to follow. Globally, the United States stands apart as one of the few developed nations that continue to execute its citizens. Countries like Canada, the United Kingdom, and Germany have abolished the death penalty, citing human rights and the value of rehabilitation over retribution. The use of untested methods like nitrogen gas calls into question whether America's justice system is aligned with the broader global trajectory. Critics argue this divergence tarnishes the country's image as a champion of human rights. The decision to execute Jessie Hoffman using nitrogen gas forces us to confront deeply unsettling questions about justice, humanity, and the role of the state in punishing crime. Does the risk of using an untested method outweigh the need for justice to be served? Can a legal system proclaim fairness while venturing into ethically uncharted territory? For Louisiana, this is a moment of reckoning. Success or failure in this case could have far-reaching consequences, not only for the state, but for the entire nation. As Hoffman's story collides with these broader ethical and legal debates, we are reminded that justice is rarely simple, and the lines between right and wrong are often profoundly blurred. As we reflect on this case, we encourage you to think critically about these questions. What does justice mean to you? How do we balance the need to hold perpetrators accountable while maintaining our moral and ethical integrity? Share your thoughts, and let's continue the conversation about justice in modern America.